created to have some fun together, sharing and singing. So, join and enjoy.
Our love for opera brings us together. Thanks for being with us in this trip.
Hi everyone! We are very glad to be sharing with all of you one more program. And we are hoping from the bottom of our hearts that everything gets well as it was in the last program when I was talking much more of the usual. But I felt comfortable, so you will be listening me a little bit more, right? Okay, so we want to thank to everybody that is joining us and that is following us week to week. And today we want to thank a very special country. Would you like to add something, Ricardo?
Yes, today we are thinking people in Turkey. It was very recently that the statistics from the podcasts told us that now people in Turkey are following us, and we want to celebrate or dedicate and maybe even better thank people in Turkey with a short biography of the greatest Turkish soprano. And I would like to add that not only she was the greatest Turkish soprano, but also one of the greatest sopranos ever. Leyla Gencer, or I read that the right pronunciation, so people in Turkey, you are free to correct me, should be like Leyla Gencer, kind of that sound, Leyla Gencer, would be the right way to pronounce her last name. To start with, I think that it is very interesting to mention that she was, in fact, an aristocrat. She had married a wealthy man, and she was a descendant also of an aristocratic family in Poland, if I remember well. And she was acknowledged, or well, she had her musical training with a singing teacher from Italy, and in fact, she made most of her career in Europe and Italy, and she gained recognition very quickly. At this point, maybe many people would say, how is it that you say that Leila was one of the greatest sopranos that I never heard of her? You have to think that she lived or she was on stage at the same time that Renata Tebaldi and Maria Callas. So with those two monsters already on stage, it was very difficult to have a name or the name that she built for herself. And if you have had the chance of listening to her recordings, in fact, I think we must mention that one of the things that we acknowledge Leila the most is that 99.99% of her recordings are live. And as we have mentioned in this program, whenever you hear someone singing live, you know what this singer is actually capable of. In studio, everybody is the super singer. But live, that's where you really prove what you are made of. And Leila has an immense repertory of over 72 roles, out of which most of them were bel canto. And as we mentioned, bel canto is not easy because it requires an excellent reading technique, perfect diction, perfect vocal technique, good expressivity, and a number of attributes that many singers really do not have. So Leila Gencer was one of the greatest. She sang the Three Queens of Donizetti. In fact, she was very comfortable in all the Donizettian roles. She was also known for her top notes. For some reasons that maybe one should discuss, there are even though it is better when the whole range of the voice of a singer is homogeneous. There is always one note that sounds better in your throat than in all the others for reasons we cannot explain. Maybe you have a beautiful G, but the lower, the F, is not that beautiful, and the A above is not beautiful either, or the opposite. Your top is very beautiful, but the others below are not that well sung. And she was very good at mastering the not the high C, but the high D and the high D flat. That note for her was particularly bright, and she loved to end her. You know that the concertante is the part where we're usually wrapping up an act, and the orchestra is full volume, and the choir is full volume, and the other singers are full volume, and that's usually where Donizetti liked to have her sopranos sing a high note. So she used to go for that note, and it was particularly bright because you could always hear her above everybody else. At this point, maybe we should mention that Leila's voice was not of great volume. In fact, she accepted it and she said, "Mine is not the greatest voice in terms of volume, but her technique was so excellent that you could always hear her in her recordings. All along her range of the voice, low notes, middle chest notes, and top notes, you could always hear her. And that can only happen when you have an excellent technique. I was telling you that she mastered the Donizettian roles, the Three Queens, the bel canto in special. But when you master your voice to the level that Leila mastered hers, you can sing other roles. So she also sang more classical roles. She sang Mozart, she sang Baroque, and she even sang Verdi. Many people do not know that she even sang Macbeth. And Macbeth is a role for a very heavy soprano, as we have mentioned in the past. And there is one thing that I liked once I was listening on the radio to a program dedicated to her. And they said that one of the greatest things about Leila is that she never pretended to have a voice that she didn't have. What she did is that she mastered her resources to make every role believable. So her Macbeth is not like Callas or Gulegina with that strong, like a bell voice there, right? It's the right voice. She never forced, she never pushed above her own limits. And if you have the chance of listening to her Maria Stuarda, for instance, or her Ana Bolena, she even sang Norma, you will hear nothing but perfection. The Turkish government acknowledged that in the true value of Leila, and she received many honors. And it is to Turkey and to people, well, not only Turkey, sorry, it is to Turkey and one of the greatest artists from that country that we would like to dedicate today's program. So we will be having this beautiful picture of the flag of Turkey, and also sharing it at the same time as with Leila, and with all our respect for people in Turkey and for the consummate artist that it was Leila Gencer. It is that we dedicate today's program. And to start with, because I have already spoken too much, let's go for the music. And Katia has a very interesting selection for today. So maybe you could share what is it going to be your first part.
Okay, I will start and then we'll talk about this song. Estrellita del cielo, esa es mi querer, y sufrir. Baja y dime si me quieres un poco. Sin su amor vivir. Estrellita lejano cielo, pobre de sufrir. Baja y dime si me quieres. Sin su amor.
So tell us why is it that you chose Estrellita by Maestro Manuel M. Ponce?
I choose this one because it is a challenge in many senses. I have this version, and this score is literally a two-page song. It's simple in the sense that the same phrase is over and over again. It only has a little different part in the middle, but essentially you are singing the same. Um, the range, it's not that extent as it could be in a bel canto area. For example, the challenge here is to say the same phrase over and again in different ways. Even when you are saying the same idea, you are asking this living star in the far sky to tell you if the loved one still loves you. Um, you are repeating it, but you have to say it with the same intention, yes, in your heart, but vocally it can be the same, and that's difficult.
Do you think you could explain further on that? Because I wanted to talk about complexity in singing, but and maybe it's sometimes not that clear to people. Because part of what I was going to explain is that people think that singing out loud is difficult. It could be true depending on your voice, but there are some intricate difficulties inside the score.
Yes, you have to have a very homogeneous color. For example, in this first class phrase where you start saying Estrellita de you are singing a bass C, and then you switch and get to a high G, for example, so that's extended, and you have to sound in the same line and in the same color. Estrellita del so you don't notice where the bass note is placed and where the highest note is placed. It has to sound like very similar. I used to tell my students that the sensation you have to give to your public when you sing is that help me please intervals. The intervals are closer, but they are really driven. For example, in this case, thinking about from this C to this high G, I would say that in my mind, I have to say that probably I'm singing from C to C, just an octave. Do, mi, sol, do. That's the sensation. Estrellita de la it sounds closer.
Yeah, that is a nice way of explaining something that is difficult. And yeah, because believe us, it is difficult. You will notice when you start singing. If you already sing, you know what Katia has been talking about. And as for my part, today I had to choose between a couple of options, but I ended up going for something similar to what we do two programs earlier. This time it is not Verdi, but this time we are talking about one of the greatest Verismo operas, and we're talking about Andrea Chenier. And Andrea Chenier is for me, and I know that for many tenors and many singers, one of the jewels, one of the greatest roles that a tenor can sing in a number of ways. It is not only he's of course the star, he's the rock star of the opera, but also opposite to other roles that maybe I have shared with you in the past that I don't really like. I really don't like, such as Il Duca de Mantua, which I really don't like. I mean, everybody knows the areas of the Duca de Mantua and his singing, but the character is very plain. He's just, a rich guy that rapes young
He's just
women.
a fuck boy, and that's it.
It's people applaud it, and that's pretty much what there is to Il Duca de Mantua. Opposite to what happens to Andrea Chenier. Andrea is the Italianization of André. In fact, the name of the poet that actually existed was André Chenier. In French, of course, it happens in the years of the French Revolution. Written by not well known composer back then, but there is this thing about composers that they write one very popular opera, and that's pretty much what people know them about. So that was the case of Umberto Giordano. His biography is very interesting. As I was telling you, he's part of the Verismo. And remember that in Verismo, pretty much it is all about shouting or going loud in volume. I would like to be sharing with you throughout today's program a couple of parts and my thoughts on the role. The first thing that I wanted to share you that I believe around 15 years ago, maybe less, maybe a little more, that's the first time that I noticed the first aria by Andrea Chenier, known as L'Improviso, or Un dia all'azzurro spazio. And I recall, I don't know if that is your case, Katia, but it is usually in mine, that I listen to something that I like. And so we do what we call marcando. So you start following it. And I remember that I messed up so many times with the position of the voice that sometimes I ended up too high, sometimes I ended up too low, and I tried to find the right position for the center middle voice that it is most of the role written on, and I truly couldn't make it. So I remember that when a friend of mine asked me what would I like to be able to sing, I told him that if I was ever able to sing Andrea Chenier, I would say that my life really was worth it. Because I knew that it was something very very hard to sing. In fact, the difficulties before we jump into the first part reside not only that it is verismo and that it requires a loud voice. The role, same case as in other cases of the verismo, is again almost, there are parts that are almost quasi parlato, which means are more declamato or spoken rather than sung. And Andrea Chenier, even though he's a poet, my God, he has a volcano in his veins. He has these sudden explosions of his emotions. And you will notice something that is very interesting in the writing of Andrea Chenier, and that's one of the things that captivates me the most, is that it does not follow a melody throughout the whole aria. If you listen to Que gelida manina tararararira, tararara, and you pretty much listen to a melody that is somehow expected. But Andrea Chenier has so many changes within one single area. At one point, he's falling in love. At the other point, he's enraged. At the other point, he's in disdain for the aristocrats. So there are at least 3 or 4 emotions in his first area, moreover. And you may even think that he's out of character. I would like to mention a couple of them. When he starts talking about love, he looks at people and say, "You that only laugh at love," basically because you don't know what love is. But he says it in an expression of disprezzo, almost shouting to them. And people, the aristocrats, say, "What is this guy? What does this guy pretend to be doing?" Because they are in a party, in an aristocratic la bourgeoisie. There is a party for la bourgeoisie. So people say, "What does this miserable poet is trying to tell us?" And that's when there is this short passage when he makes reference to the poverty and the lack of possibility of the poor to even sustain their own children. The rapping is very difficult because all the endings of André Chenier end in the central C for the tenor. And you may say, what's the difficulty if it is the central? The problem is all the things that you have been doing in the past. You may end up with too much vibrato. Your voice may be too tired to do it full voice. And since you come, if I remember well, you come after a B, you sing a high B, and then you go back to C in full volume. It's pretty easy to mess up. Fortunately for my neighbors, since it is already late at night, I will not be singing out loud. I will try to sing it more marcato because we don't want my ring, someone ringing my bell and saying, "Hey, you shut up! It's too late for being singing that." So, shut up! Yeah. So I will be trying to sing it more marcato than the usual. So I hope that things go fairly well. So this is the first aria by Andrea Chenier. I really invite you to pay attention to the different passages within the same aria, showing different moods and different content from this poet that sounds more like a soldier rather than a poet himself.
Colpito qui m'avete, o mio geloso cielo, il pio coro palpitar dell'anima. Or vedrete fanciulla, qual poema, e la parola la nicchia dei santi e della vergini accumulava toni. E al sordo orecchio un tremulo veniardo invano chiedeva pane e invan stendea la mano, varcai della vita in uscio, o non vi calumniava bestemmian il suolo, che l'erario appena sazia, e contra Dio scaniava, e contra gli uomini le lagrime dei figli. In con tanta miseria la patrizia prole che fa solo ch'io vostro esprime umanamente qui un guardo di pietà, onde ho guardato a voi sì come un angelo e dissi ecco la bellezza della vita. Ma poi alle vostre parole uno vedo dolor mai colto in pieno petto. O giovinetta bella, don poeta non disprezzate il letto, o dite non conoscete amor divino dono, non lo schernir del mondo anima e vita e l'amor.
Well, I think I didn't keep my promise of singing it more marcato.
No, you didn't.
I really didn't. So maybe we should explain what marcato really means. And for that, we have a singing teacher that can explain it better.
Okay, marcato, it means marcar, just to mark. It would be like estrellita de lejos cielo. I'm just drawing with pencil, not making the painting at all.
Okay. With that being said, it's usually, well, there are singers that like to rehearse only marcato because that way they do not tire their voice. And there are singers who are in favor of that, and there are singers who are against of that. But
It
before we
depends
jump,
on you.
sorry,
It
which one do
depends
you
on you.
prefer?
For example, the work. There are pieces that I prefer to mark, and there are others that I get exhausted just marking, and I prefer to sing fully.
Yeah, you're right about that. There are many times when marcato is more tiring than actually singing it. Yeah.
Because you are using so much more air and you are using more your diaphragm, so it would be better if you sing it as well.
Yeah, and